Greetings and thank you for joining us on today's episode of Lumen Conversation Unscripted. My name is Mercy, and with me in the studio, I'm not alone. I'm joined by Sydney, and we have a very special guest joining us on today's conversation. We have Mr. George Hamsunga in the studio. Mr. George, welcome.
Thank you so much, and the pleasure is mine.
Most welcome, Mr. Hamsunga, and nice to see you after a long time.
It's my pleasure. We have been, working in the sector, and we are glad now that we are back here to discuss what we've been doing all this long.
Great.
Yeah.
Nice seeing you also. We meet in the corridors. Second episode, anchoring the two of us. We fired the others.
Not really. They're maybe on temporal station. Okay. They will surely be back.
Okay.
Yes. So what are we talking about today?
Today, having, of course, those who have been in the education sector knows that obviously something about education is about to come out. Just seeing the man with us here, Mr. Hamsunga. But maybe to start with, even before we get into what we'll be talking about, maybe Mr. George can tell us, it's a long time we sat down with someone from Zambia National Education Coalition. How is it and what's going about there?
Well, maybe who is Mr. George exactly? Who is Mr. George Hamsunga exactly? So that before he tells us what really goes on there, maybe you can tell us briefly about yourself.
Well, George Hamsunga, really, typically a villager from a rural area. I have a passion in advocacy, and my training actually is in public advocacy and activism. And in the last 16 years, I've been focusing on education advocacy at national, at regional and global level. As executive director for Zambia National Education Coalition, or ZANEC, which is a coalition of NGOs that are working in the education sector in Zambia. We have really been helping the Ministry of Education to achieve, certain priorities that are part of the, national policies, programs, as well as, the plans like the education sector plan for 2022 to 2026. So that's what we've been working. But the focus really of ZANEC, and this needs to be emphasized, is to ensure that, all government commitments that are made at international level, such as commitments in SDG 4, commitments, for instance, that are in the Continental Education Strategy for Africa for the years 2016 to 2025. We look at all those promises, and we want to ensure that we follow up government and ensure that government implements those commitments at national level. So that is, our main focus. But in terms of our business, it revolves around three pillars. We are a research institution. So we have not less than 5 researchers that are going on in the sector at a time. We also, of course, are an advocacy institution, but we are also a capacity building institution. But in the recent past, in line with centralization, I think we've realized that there's need also to engage in social accountability. Social accountability is mainly, empowering our local communities to monitor service delivery and be able to hold, service deliverers or duty bearers at that level, accountable to the provision of, the services that government has, promised according to the standards. For instance, at the primary school level, we expect that, every classroom would have 45 learners and they would have a teacher at least. That is the standard for government. At secondary school, we expect 35 learners in a class to 1 teacher. So we expect also, the desk ratio, the infrastructure ratio, all those standards that we have created to be something that the local communities that are within the schools are able to monitor and ensure that, government fulfills those standards, while we work at policy level to ensure that whatever commitments made at international level, they find themselves in the national policies, in the national programs, in the national budgets and plans. So that is basically what we do as Zambia National Education Coalition.
Great. Mammoth, a lot of work being done there. Interested, you said at every point you have about 5 researches happening. Just like in this period of the 5, which one interests you the most and why?
I think for now what we are doing in terms of research, the status of education research that we are conducting now is quite topical. As you know, we have been implementing the free education policy, and this has transformed, the way, the system is. And it is important that we generate, adequate, information that is going to inform us, for instance, in terms of the resources now that are going to the schools, in terms of the enrollments that we have in the schools, and in terms of how we are dealing with the challenges that have come as a result of free education. I must say, free education is a very positive, policy. What we need to do is to try and ensure that as we implement it, we are giving, our learners a meaningful experience, so that they don't just go to school, but they get the best that is going to add value to their future lives, as well as, to our national development.
Okay.
Okay, so I heard you say what you're trying to do is ensuring that the learners get the best. How are you ensuring, like, what are you implementing to make sure that the learners are actually getting the best? Because I wouldn't say from my experience, because I'm not experiencing a free education, but I've seen a situation, like, especially now that free education is there, a situation where one classroom has actually over 70 pupils, and then some of the students actually, the whole term, the teacher has never even marked their book. And obviously, if you go to the teacher and you are looking for a particular student or pupil, the teacher has got no idea that that person is even in their class, because I don't know if it's an overload or I'm not sure, but they're a good number. I don't know if it's overpopulated in their classes. So what really are you doing to implement that those people are getting good services and excellent?
Yes, you'll see that I don't normally talk about the quality of education, because it is, as researchers, we have noted that the conceptualization of quality of education is not something that is simple. And even studies that have been done here, I think, have shown that we still have challenges in defining the quality of education. But I will focus on, a true learning experience for our learners. Now, what we need to know is that free education is fundamental, because what does it do? It removes the out-of-school children. They bring them in a school environment. The school environment, even before teaching, takes place, is very safe. It's a safe environment. So if we get our girls there, and we noted during the COVID-19 pandemic, that the impact of the pandemic in terms of, the safety of our girls, for instance, that were in homes, was devastating. So just by bringing those children into the school environment, we are assured of, the fact that they will not engage in other vices that may impact on their future development. So that becomes very important. So free education itself as a policy is very good, but what we need to start doing, and if you look at research, countries like Botswana, countries like Malawi, and other countries that have pronounced free education, there is not a single country that was prepared before they pronounced the policy. And that is not how it goes. But the problem maybe with us has been that the pronouncement of free education should have been followed by the generation of empirical evidence around the impact of the policy and how we can mitigate the problems you are talking about. We've heard people talk about around 3 million children have come to school as a result of. All that is anecdotal evidence. There is no empirical evidence as to the numbers that have gone in the class. And this is why we are saying education is so important that we cannot afford to experiment. We need evidence. We need to generate education is the focal point of all our aspirations as a country. If you want to grow the agricultural sector, go to the curriculum and couch it in such a way that you produce people that are not going to look for employment, but that are going to be entrepreneurs and be able to grow, crops and be able to export. So if you want to improve mining, you look to education. If you want to improve, the manufacturing sector, you have to look to education. All those innovations that you think should come, to the fore in order for us to develop can only be done through education. But for you to be precise, you need to respect the generation of evidence. Data and evidence becomes very important in running the sector. So now, answering your question, we have seen, of course, that the numbers are very high in the classrooms. We have also seen that there is an increase in the funding that is going to schools. But the disappointment perhaps is that although there's been a rise, you may wish to know that from 2021 to date, the education budget has increased from 13 billion to the current 31 billion. So from 13 billion in 2021 to 31, you can see that it has, doubled, over the last, 3 years. So in terms of funding going to the schools, and much of that funding, if you track, the actual, intra-budget allocations, you will see that much of it goes to the schools, which is a positive development because our research shows that from 2015, let me say from 2011, the amount of money that parents were paying, those that were paying in secondary schools or in basic schools, had reduced by 40%. So we are only collecting 40% from the parents. But now we are collecting 100% from the government. Plus more because they have a grant which is intended for free education. And also we have leveraged as education from the CDF. Our research has shown that 60% of the CDF funding has been going to education. So when you look at the amount of money going to the education sector, you will say, yes, it is okay, but the problem is we need the evidence, and two, we need also to fund the districts and the provinces so that they provide oversight on the utilization of a lot of funding that is going to school to alleviate the problems that we have. So despite having those problems, I think the new government has provided opportunities, especially through the CDF and through the increased, free education grant, for us to start addressing those problems systematically. Of course, we cannot address them in a day, but we need to address them, progressively as resources, are allowing. Otherwise, the ultimate, as you are saying, is not to get our children to school only, but it is to give them an experience that is going to transform their future and also transform our country.
Mr. Mzunga, you've said mostly you don't like to talk about quality of education, but this is one thing that we keep hearing. It keeps coming out. For example, we are still in the month of independence, and I don't know if it is empirical evidence or the other term you call it. People still say those people who were educated in Kaunda time, they got the quality of education that they needed, and so it pushed them to development that you are talking about. Now, the fact that the budget is being increased year in, year out, and yet we hear of this comparison of the education that is so much respected and still being highly talked about now, that happened in the Kaunda time compared to these days. What is the real challenge that our education is suffering of today?
That's a very, very good question. The main challenge really are the learning outcomes. So our learners are not able to demonstrate proficiency in very critical areas that, we can demonstrate that they have gained something. For instance, just to give you an example, in 2019, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, did a study to compare the learning outcomes for Zambia and other countries. You will be surprised that was 2019. And they found out that only 5% of the 15-year-old children were able to demonstrate proficiency in literacy. In simple language, let me try to bring it down. They found that only 5% of the grade 7s were able to read a simple passage. And they found that only 2% of the grade 7 pupils were able to solve a simple mathematical problem.
Where is the problem? What's the cause of that?
Now, that is very serious, as you know that if a child cannot read, they cannot write an exam, because all exams are written, using English. If it is science, they need to be able to read, the question in English and understand it and be able to answer. So when you see that the proficiency is that much, then it becomes a problem. Now look at the situation again. That was 2019. COVID comes in 2020. It brings along what we call learning poverty. So it reduces the amount of learning that can take place because the children are in the homes. And the World Bank does a study, and they find that the learning poverty in Zambia is at 98.5%. Learning poverty is simply, the proportion of the, 10-year-old children that are able to demonstrate proficiency in literacy. In simple terms, the proportion of grade 4 pupils, 10 years in Zambia, they're in grade 4, that are able to read a simple passage. They found that only, if we say 98.5%, it means the grade 4, only 1.5% are able to read a simple passage. And that has come after COVID. So you see that we have a challenge in the sense that our learners go to school, but we are not able to improve their assimilation of knowledge, skills, and the values that we look for. And one of the problems that I want to tell you, and you need to understand this, one of the problems why learning is not taking place, which we need to address, are the learning hours. Now, at primary school level, our research has found that on average, children learn 3 hours per day, which translates to 15 hours in a week. In a month, it translates to 60 hours. In a year, it translates to 540 hours. Those 540 hours translate to 21.5 days. If our learners were learning day and night in a year, they would learn only for 21.5 days. The rest, they will be playing football, they will be, watching TV, they will be playing in the sand. So you can see the rest of the day. So when we say 21.5, you remove from 366 days, you will see that over, 344 days, the children are not doing anything. So first, what we need to do is to increase the learning hours. This is the more reason the revised curriculum, which was very progressive of 2013, was not implemented, because what we did is we added new things without extending the time. And the implementation rate, when we did an evaluation, was for most of the subjects, it did not exceed 40%. And that is what even the new curriculum is likely to suffer, because the learning hours are very few. We have done well to streamline the subjects. We have done well also to, apart from reducing the subjects to a minimum of 6 at least, we have said we are also going to reduce the content within the subjects so that we can weed out that irrelevant content. But even with that, 540 hours are the least in the region, because other countries are having between 800 to 1,200 learning hours at primary school level. And this is what we need to, because there is just very little time for us to be able to interface, to have the teachers, interface with the learners. So we had these many subjects and making our pupils, overwhelmed. The other problem, and this is a major problem, and I hope it can be taken, is the aspect of the use of local language as a medium of instruction. I don't like talking about it, because, and I'm happy that government is doing away with it in the new curriculum, because It is the West policy that this country has embraced, because research is very clear. There's no multilingual country globally that has improved its education system through the use of local language. We need to wait until we have produced enough material for people to be able to take a career in Bemba as a doctor, a career in Tonga as a teacher. But as long as we will come back in grade 7 writing English exams across all the subjects, language is learnt when children are very young. If we start teaching children serious language in grade 5, we are late. Experience, if you go to Tanzania now, that embraced this, earlier, you'll see that they are devastated. Only 40% of the grade 7s in Tanzania are able to qualify to go to grade 8. And when you look at the quanta, or you disaggregate that further, those are learners coming from homes where they don't speak local language. They were not impacted as much. It is good. Some professors have told that people learn better in local language. Code switching has always been there for teachers. When they start in grade 1, they will not just come, how are you? No. There will be code switching. There will be code switching until, children start learning a few words and then they continue in English. But to say we use local language, go and read the Tower of Babel, even in the Bible. They will tell you that God himself did pronounce the fact that when people are using a single language, they are unstoppable. And as a country, we need to rally around a single language, because that's what will unite us, and that's what will enable us to build this country together. Those that are separating us and telling us to use, our various languages and what, they are suggesting that if I'm Tonga, I need to go and teach in Southern Province when I finish. So they are separating us, okay? And there is no value whatsoever, because the local language will not enable us undertake a career in our local language. If you can't read by grade 7, you are gone. Because in grade 8, they don't teach reading. The automatic progression which we stopped, it was as a result of that research showed that the same children that fail in grade 7 will fail in grade 9. So we are just delaying their going home. Not adding anything, in terms of their knowledge, skills, and, values.
Okay. So, Miss, you get it.
I almost asked about when you said the Bible says that when people use one language, they're unstoppable. Let's say maybe, for example, like in our homes, most of us speak our local language. So when we go to school and then the teacher is explaining in English, it's actually very difficult for one to understand. Maybe that's why the teachers are able to use the local language so that students can understand better. I know, for example, what example did I want to put? For example, if I use my local language at school and at home, and then I go to school, I'm stepping on the desk. And then the teacher says, don't step on the desk with your shoes. And then at home, I know that shoes means sapato. I would obviously keep stepping on. So maybe the teachers, in order for one to understand, maybe it's also important that at least they should be using our local language there in the process of them diverting from more of local language to maybe English, like as in one language. Maybe it's also important for a teacher to use the local language. And then the other thing that I would say, for example, I'm Nyanja, and then it maybe also my plans are that when I'm done with maybe my education and my work, I will still stay in the eastern part of Zambia. So if I go to school and then a teacher is busy using English or what, I will obviously be very devastated, because my interest is not to learn English, but just to go there and just maybe get a little education so that I can be civilized with other people. So I think it's difficult for one to understand why we need to maybe do away with our local language, because our mindsets are different. There are other people that don't intend to go and work elsewhere. Their intention is to work where they are. So if you start using English on them,
yeah, so when we look at countries that have used local language as a medium of instruction, those are mono language countries like India, like China, not Germany is one of them. Well, and you see that those countries have produced materials all the way. You can become a doctor by just knowing Germany. You can become a doctor by just knowing maybe Hindi or something, those languages, or Chinese. That is okay. But really, sometimes when you demand certain things, you really need to grow first. For us, I think we don't have that space. Learning English, if we bring English at grade 5, we say that's when we'll be serious instruction in English. It is late because grade 5 they are in 11 years. Studies have shown that languages are learnt at a lower age, and also the proficiency in those languages will be determined by the number. So if you want to teach people 4 languages even when they are young, their proficiency will not be good. So teach them 2 languages, it's fine. But the issue really is that there is no need for us to stick to local language because it has no bearing on our careers. It has no bearing on anything that we will do upstairs. It has nothing whatsoever. Yes, we can use it to preserve, our culture by having one subject to be a local language. Take Bemba, so that you learn your cultures. But to say be proficient in Bemba at the expense of being proficient in English is killing our learners. It's killing our learners for as long as we want them to take up careers in which, they will have to demonstrate proficiency in English. That is very, very serious, and we need not compromise. We love our local languages, actually. But the fact is that they do not have, meaningful value now in the setup of our education system. Because all exams are held in English. And if you can't read like the grade 7 exams I have started today, if you can't read the question, you can't even guess. You see? And that becomes a problem. And this is what we are talking about. But the most important thing really is for us to know that as a country, we have research that has shown that proficiency has reduced as a result of, instruction in local language. But we are saying, like you are saying, learning English doesn't start with a word, okay? And they even challenge people. So if you want to say anatomy in local language, in your Nyanja, what is anatomy? Or physiology? Okay, if we go to biology, anatomy of physiology.
Just pronounce it heavy to
you see? So when I tell you that, you know it directly, but you can't say it in your local language. So there are certain things that we cannot even translate from English to local language because we are dealing with 2 cultures, that are very different. But what we need to stick to really is to ensure that our learners, when they are pursuing these careers, they are proficient. Because the background or the language that they are using, in which they have to express themselves, in which they have to analyze things, is something that they are really, grounded on. Otherwise, that's one of them. But the other thing that has affected, and we will go to that, is, education is seen to be very simple. Actually, for us working in the sector, they think, we know very little. Because education is simple. It's not simple. The concentration, for instance, on foundational skills. You have heard a lot now about people talking about early childhood education as a panacea. They will tell you that Heckman's Cave even says that if those people who have gone to early childhood education will have 25% increase in their incomes. And their returns to the community will be around 30%. And now all countries, Zambia inclusive, they are not analyzing that evidence, and they are spending a lot of money only in early childhood education. They don't care how children are transitioning from early childhood education, for instance, to primary, and from primary to secondary, and from secondary to tertiary. They don't care. If you count the number of donors we have in this country, they will tell you that they are either 60% are working on early childhood development. The remaining 40%, if we are lucky, they are working in primary. None working on secondary, none working on tertiary. What is the reason? When we go to research and we say, what is the value of ECE? What is the value of primary education? The value there Yes, it's a foundation, but no one has lived on a foundation. If you build a house and you say, I want to shift, you can't shift while you have a foundation, without a superstructure, without a roof. Yes, it's a good as a foundation. But the most important thing that we need to know is that those foundational skills, they do not have any relationship with economic development. They have everything to do with, personal development. Some of the human, development indicators that we can talk about, hygiene, morbidity, sicknesses. If you have gone to primary education, you learn a balanced diet. So that can help you, to eat something that will protect you and not go to. So that actually, yes, HIV, AIDS, like we talk about those sicknesses, we know that the risk of those people that have been to school in terms of getting HIV infection is lower than those that have never been to school. So you can see that the benefits really are there, but they don't put food on the table. You can't do primary and put food on the table, because putting food on the table requires participating in the economy. That's what education is all about, to bring people to participate in the economy, where they will be generating their own income and paying taxes and being able to feed themselves. That is what development is all about. If you can't bring people in the mainstream economy, then you are not working. And that starts with secondary education. And it progresses to skills. But why do most people don't want to invest in these higher level skills? It's because these are liberating skills for education.
But they don't want people to be liberated.
No. They want you to have the copper, but not have the technology to mine the copper. You have to consult others who have the technology to partner with you to come here and get your resource. What we lack is just technology. If we had all the technology, we would have all these industries within here, and you would not see raw copper running on our roads, leaving the country.
What are we supposed to do to have the technology with us?
We need to invest in higher level skills, period.
So investment should be in foundation.
Very good.
Primary, secondary, and tertiary. Then we are complete.
I can't add anything.
Yes.
This is a child we are hand-holding. We can't say this child, we love them when they are at ECE. We have to see them with all the love up to their final destination. And this is where the problem, even if you look at the and we haven't been influenced, we have been brainwashed, as well, by what I call, well, maybe let me not call them on the program. Stiglitz calls them, the bad Samaritan. If you read Chang, so the bad Samaritans. So what they have done, these multinational companies, is to brainwash us to start thinking that investing in lower level skills is the best thing that we can do as a country. And what all the pronouncements at regional level, if you look at the thresholds, they'll tell you that more money should be given to primary. Do you know how much primary is getting now? Close to 70% of our 2024 budget goes to primary education. In 2015, you and me, you know that the number of children that we had brought in school in terms of enrollment rates was around 96%. That is almost 100%. We didn't see any development outcomes. By 2015, we had reached near universal primary education. We didn't see the benefits. But when we went into SDGs, it was difficult for people to start saying, oh, let's concentrate on primary, it is good for development, because they had seen that people had achieved and nothing was showing. So now they started talking about early childhood education. It's the foundation. If you don't, you will not what. And that is where now they are focusing on. And we are all swayed there. And we are investing a lot of money still in ECE, in primary. If you go to secondary, even our own allocations are less than 20%. You go to tertiary, it's less than 5% of our education budget goes to tertiary. Where are we going? Are we going to develop because young children are able to speak good English and they are able to to solve mathematics. We are not. We will develop because our investment in high-level skills has produced innovations that can sustainably harvest our natural resources to be able to bring about development today without compromising the needs of future generations. And it's only us who can be that concerned. Mm-hmm. If we bring investors, we have always, in my articles that I have written, you will see that I don't eulogize, foreign direct investment. Mm-hmm. I don't eulogize it. Mm-hmm. Because as a country, we can generate our own capital and invest in our own development. Because if you look at the benefits that accrue to us, from the multinational companies, you will see that we are suffering a huge problem of exploitation.
So, okay, Mr. Schultz, before I just want him to answer this and then we go for a break.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's part of this, so that when we come, we go to other things. Okay, when you're talking about a concern with the hours of learning, 3 hours you mentioned, I was also thinking, if we increase the hours of learning, are we also suggesting, or are you also suggesting that even the hours of teaching of every teacher should also increase? And what about, for example, the teachers in secondary schools? They teach in this class, teach in that class. What is going to happen to their teaching lessons? Is it plans they call, whatever?
Very good. That's a very good question. The teaching and the learning, the way it takes place now, we may be, it may be a fallacy for us to start thinking, well, let's say now children will be learning for, 7 hours. So we just increase, there will be chaos. Because remember, some of the schools are double streams, some of them are triple streams. So if you say 7, so the children will be knocking off at 23 hours, some of them. This, this is the more reason that we've been talking about embracing technology, embracing digital literacy. We need to ensure that we can use digital technology to make our learning a blended approach. See, where children can benefit from face-to-face as well as from digital, or from ICTs. For instance, just to give you an example, I can assure you that 30 years from now, whether we like it or not, we will not be building these blocks, with brick and mortar and say this is a classroom, because it will be too hot for our children to be in there. And we will not manage to maintain the air cons, will not manage, even the children themselves will not manage to walk to those classrooms. It will be too hot for them. Because we need swimming pools, we need what there, so that when it's hot, they go there with their uniform, come out and sit in class. That will not happen. The future of our education system is going to depend on technology. Even the amount of teachers that we are employing to teach, you will see that we will not need to employ more teachers. One teacher will be able to teach many schools at his go. And this traffic of polluting the environment, taking one child in a big truck to a classroom there, no. Parents will just have rooms within the houses where a child, when they have a class, will walk in. And they will do interactive learning. Very effective, and do online examinations, online testing, and will come up with this. Walking to the buildings, this depending on a physical teacher to learn, is something that we need to stop thinking about. Let's see, and we are happy that the ministry has started a robust process of connecting schools to internet. That is the whole reason. The universities, if you look at UNISA, University of South Africa now, if you go there, it's not a big university, but look at the enrollment. They are enrolling about 14 million students. And they make more money than the top university in Africa, the University of Pretoria. Why? Because the University of Pretoria is, although it's the top university in Africa, it's depending on physical lessons to a very large extent. So Open and distance e-learning is the future of our education system. And the earlier we start blending our learning to ensure that children can learn in homes, children can learn, wherever they are. And when they go to school, it is for critical things. For those hours, we are able to give them. But when they go back, they have online platforms, they have radio to listen to, they have, they have also, other platforms like television and others that they can interact with. You'll see that even these exams we do for the external exams, for instance, the pass rate is going to increase because they will have, because you can't send someone to go and rewrite who you have not remediated. They failed because they don't know, and you say go and write again. In they are not know state. You don't get the best out of them. So these platforms can provide, avenues for them to revise. They can provide avenues for people to learn outside the classroom. And this is where we are. This issue of closing schools when there is cholera and you start waiting when cholera will be with us. And I tell you, climate change is going to come with a lot of pandemics. That I can assure you, which are going to keep our children outside the classroom. And we have to prepare now to be able to teach them, to ensure continuity of learning in our homes.
Okay, so before we go on a short break, I want to ask, so since you said 30 years from now, this issue of going to learn physically will not be there, are you telling me that me who wants to do teaching, it's a sheer waste of time to go and do teaching now? Because 30 years from now, I'm not going to be going there to teach people.
Exactly. You will not lose employment. But you know what you benefit? No. Please start, when you want to send your child now to go and learn, make sure that the ICT is one of the subjects that they learn. Okay. That is what is going to teach them. For us to retrain all the teachers now so that they can be able to deliver blended learning can be very expensive. But if we can do that from the training colleges, that we make ICT compulsory, I can't imagine a teacher who relies on looking for hard textbooks to read to, when you can type on a laptop and research and information will just come. And the lesson plan, every year you are writing the same lesson from with there too. You just need to edit to include new knowledge, and then you go and deliver. Not all the time. And I was even asking one of the lecturers, one of the professors at University of Zambia, do they still use chalks? And you know what he told me? The professor said, I was wondering also, but when I went in one of the lecture room, I found a lot of chalk. Someone was using chalk. All that era has to go. We need to start with, smart technologies that, at least we can go and project something, use a projector to children so that certain things they can see for themselves, and not always, because even a blackboard, if you want to give a test, for instance, it's very difficult because there are just a few questions you can write there. And others are slow learners or slow writers. So for you to erase again where you started from, others will not have finished. So all that where we find it now, we should condemn it. We need to move. Education should be the pioneer of technology. Everyone should go to school to learn technology and not vice versa. We should be the ones that, are initiating these technologies in our schools. So what I'm telling you is that as a teacher now, don't be content if you don't know a laptop. If you don't know how to surf the internet. Because in years to come, you will fail to deliver. Because there will be a time when we cannot deliver. Please take this as prophecy. There will be time that we will not deliver lessons physically for a long time. And we will erode all the gains that we have made over the years if we cannot provide continuity of learning in our homes.
Oh, okay. Our dear viewers, we'll go on a short break. Don't go away.
I met God. Life can be so tough. Sometimes it feels like you are drowning in a sea of troubles. But there comes hope. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. But then something incredible happens. They met God. I Met God is a new program that shares inspiring stories of people who have overcome adversity through their faith in God. Join us as we celebrate the power of faith and the triumph of the human spirit. I Met God starts airing on November 10th on Lumen TV. Don't miss it. Have you met God in a special way? Share your story with us. Your testimony could inspire somebody else. Contact us at put the number for the presenter, and the number is 0977 3000774. I met God because hope never lost. My name is Judith Banga, your presenter of this inspiring program, alongside my co-host Evelyn Temple. We met God. Have you? Come and share your story.
Abuela James Mai from wherever she was the previous night. But about no, in an hour and pachecha, difference in Imperico Mao. But looking Mamena Valida, we talk about Papa Livuta. How do we get to such situations?
So, if somebody that is dressed in a manner that is not churchy, a manner is addressing yakuma areas kunango, and somebody like that comes to the church, that is most likely going to cause scandal. And if it is going to cause scandal, it is going to disturb the faith of the people in that church. So, as a caring church, as a church that is concerned about your faith also, not just about the faith of other people, we want you to come and listen to the word, but we want you to come and sit with others in a way that does not distract others from listening to the same word. So that's why you see ushers bringing chitenge or something better to wear.
Welcome back. Thank you for still staying with us, Sydney.
Yes, yeah. So welcome, dear viewers. As Messi has said, Mr. Msunga, good that you've stayed even with us. Now, people may misunderstand you, Mr. Msunga. You are saying putting a lot of money in ECD is not good. Maybe someone may be saying maybe you don't just appreciate ECD.
Yeah, we do, actually, and that's a very good question. We do. Now, if you look at what we have done in the sector as Zambia National Education Coalition, in 2012, during the Global Action Week, we did a speech for the Minister of Education, then John Piri, in which we committed government to start the direct provision of early childhood education through the annexing of ECE centers to primary schools. And of course, there was a huge debate, but we managed to convince them because the PF then, in their manifesto, had promised to provide an ECE center in every community, on page 9 of their manifesto. And we carried the manifesto to them and we told them that this is how you can start realizing your vision in the manifesto. And that's how government started the direct provision of ECE, through annexing ECE centers to existing primary schools. As you know now, we jumped in terms of, we are using a proxy indicator. In terms of grade 1 entrance with ECE experiences, now we are at around 36% of our grade 1 entrants that have, ECE experience. So we respect the need for ECE, but what we are saying is that it should not be seen as an end in itself because it has no direct, relationship with economic development itself. And what we need to do is to value ECE, value primary, value secondary, and value tertiary. Knowing that the high level skills from secondary up to tertiary, including TVET skills, are the ones that are directly related to development. And this is what we are saying. But when you look at our investment, you will see that the investment across the continuum of the education sector does not respond to us putting a premium on higher level skills. We want to look at foundational skills. It is not enough, and it will not get us anywhere.
Mm-hmm. I think I may tend to agree with you. Looking at, there are families where a person is maybe just educated up to grade 12, And when such happens, you find that in a family, that person, if something doesn't extraordinary, so to say, doesn't happen, no one comes up to say, okay, no, there's this place you can go to, start doing this, and then later on you take yourself to school, you find that nothing happens. A person remains there. And we are talking of grade 12.
Yeah.
You see? So to that extent, I think I agree with you, and that I think funding should be at ECD level, and then primary, secondary, and tertiary.
Yeah.
Then maybe at that level, even critical thinking may come in, even harnessing our own copper, even if it is agriculture, someone needs at least some education to be able to take advantage of the portion of land that one may have, because there are people who may have very little land, but they harvest a lot from that, and then you find this other person with hectares of land, and then the harvest is very little. Yeah, maybe we talk about another issue, Mr. Msunga, which is just in the same line. Nowadays we talk a lot of lack of employment. Is it employment opportunities? And yet we have so many numbers of people who are graduating from tertiary institutions year in, year out. Is it also the problem of education?
Yeah, that is a very good question. Actually, as education, it's, I think, one of the things that we are suffering. And this is not now a government blame, it's us as educationists who are working in the sector. The problem is that people are asking us, why should we send our children to school? Because we have seen the coexistence with literacy or high levels of literacy with poverty and hunger. Someone would go to school complete and go back to the village and start wearing perforated clothes because they cannot, their education cannot liberate them from poverty. And we need to do more to convince people why they should send their children to school. And this is important. Now, when you look at where the missing link now for employment is that the same way we conceptualized education in 1964 is the same way we look at education today. Let me give you an example, a very critical example. The University of Zambia was initially, if you look at the history, it was established to train teachers because we needed to produce more graduates in various, sectors. We had very few, around 100 graduates at independence. So it was important that the University of Zambia produces more teachers so that we can increase the. But if you go to the university now, you will see that they are still, producing more teachers than anything else.
The School of Education is still the biggest, yes.
But is that our greatest need now? No. Now, quickly, what is leading to unemployment are two things. One, it is that our curriculum is tailored towards people getting skills that they are going to use to look for employment elsewhere. You might have seen that after we recruited all the teachers, all those graduates of agriculture also started marching on the roads to say, we want to be employed. You have employed the teachers, as we also completed in agri. When there is a lot of opportunities that can earn them more income than they can get as a salary from government if they were employed. So two things. We need to look at the skills, and we need to look at the values, and we need to look at the attitudes. You see, people really die when they are fired in employment because they think that all income comes from an employer. You cannot generate your own income. That is not a good thing for our country, because if you look, I've heard people talk about, you need to link your curriculum to industry. What industry is there today? Which industry can advertise for jobs now and they will not get people? We have produced enough experts, even metallurgists. We have enough metallurgists that are not employed, even with all these mines that are opening now. The issue is that we need to be training people so that they have skills, yes, for technical to get employed, but they must have skills for working for themselves as well. Even our home economics, the lowest home economics, should teach them to make doormats, to make carpets, to make what? Plus other things they are doing. So that when they go, if they can't get a job, they make a carpet, the neighbor will buy and they'll have food on their table. It doesn't mean that getting money requires a pen and a paper or a laptop on the table. No. Hands-on skills. When people graduate, whether you are an engineer, you need to have hands-on skills on specific things that you can use to be able to employ yourself. That is where we are. We have no industry to train people and take them now. We can only train people to work for themselves. But the mindset of working for themselves has to be created. It's the role of education as well, to mold those values, to have people start believing in themselves. And that is where we are missing it. But we have now a very progressive curriculum, I can say. Mm-hmm. The recently reformed, it was a curriculum reform, not a review. The recently reformed curriculum is very progressive. But what we need to do as a country is to ensure that it is implemented.
Mr. George, for someone who has not seen that curriculum, what are some of the things? Because I think 3 or 4 times you've mentioned a very good curriculum, very good. Just a few things that are in there that are good.
Well, I think the curriculum has defined a very clear career path. The career paths there are very well. When you meet a grade 4 child, he will tell you what they'll become and that what they'll be able to make based on the career path that they are going to follow. So those in science, those in social science, all of them, it is very clear. And there are certain aspects that we have made mandatory, that whether you are a scientist or you are a natural scientist or you are a social scientist, we want you to get this skill, like entrepreneurship. It's going to cut across everyone. You can give, you've heard our miners, you become a miner, you get a lot of money, but you don't know how to use your money. At the end of the month, you want to use all the money. When they get paid, they don't even go for work. They want to dance. They want to use all the money. So entrepreneurship, how to manage your resources sustainably to ensure that they can last or you can have value for the money you are getting is very important. You know, as Zambians, that's why I agree with a Christian nation. When we are paid, we have money and we can do everything. We can give anyone. Because we don't have skills around entrepreneurship, skills around how to use money,
not that we
or
generous.
How to make money. Well, generosity has to be measured. You don't become generous to the extent that you deprive yourself
and your family.
Yeah, and your family. And this is what is happening even in the village. They harvest a lot, but whoever passes by, they give a bucket, they give a what. They don't calculate how much they need to the next coming season. And they will call you in town to say, now we are hungry.
You already got a share when you went there. They gave you something, so you also need to
pay back. Yeah, you are right. I agree. But otherwise, you will see that entrepreneurship and financial literacy in general is something that everyone needs. Because it's not the amount of money that you make. It is the discipline and the knowledge around how to manage money. That can help you derive value from the money you have.
Okay. Now, there's this issue we've talked about. I don't know if it is a curriculum issue or what. I still hear insistence in government schools that until one is it 7? That's when you can start grade 1. And so you hear some people saying, when I got very sharp. But ku government was mvomera kali mungono is 6, is 5. So let me just take this child, this boy or this girl to a private school and then ku government azakaenda kubwina so azakamkana nishayamba kudara.
Very correct. And the government is aware of that. If you look at the current enrollments, you'll see that most of the grade 1 entrants, they may not be in the mainstream public schools. They are 6 years. So what has government done? As a result, in the new curriculum, children will be entering grade 1 at 6 years.
Okay.
That is what has been...
so at least it has been revised.
It has been revised.
Yeah.
And even at global level, we've been arguing that the life expectancy is very short If we spend so much time in school, if you calculate, we don't have time. If I tell you, we spend more time in class than working at our current life expectancy, which is unproductive. So we need to streamline the years of learning to ensure that we maximize and start benefiting from the skills that we have. So now it is 3 years of ECE, meaning that a child will be going to ECE 3 years, 4 years, and 5 years. You are in ECE these 3 years, 3, 4, and 5. 6, you are in grade 1. That is how the new curriculum now is going to be. So it's going to resolve that, because we have seen that also those are the students that are performing very well, because they don't get to be distracted early in their education system. Those overage enrollments at 9 years are also the victims of the dropouts that we talk about from grade 4. When you hear that we have parity from grade 1 to grade 4, they start dropping up. Those that start dropping down in grade 4, those that drop out, it's as a result of overage enrollment. Because if you start grade 1 at 9, then it means that by grade 4, you'll be a teenager. Okay? You'll be 13. And you know a lot of things that go with teenagers. And this is where we have a problem, and we have to address that.
Mr. Hamsunga, your last words under a minute.
Well, my last words is that I think our education system is a system that for a long time we have believed in, simply because it performed very well in the past. After independence, up to the 1977 education reforms, where we emphasized on technical and vocational skills. But in between, we had lost it because we became too theoretical and we were training people to be employed by industry. But now the population has grown and we do not have space to employ everyone. And this is why we need to seize the opportunity that has been presented by the current curriculum or the revised curriculum, that we start now training people to employ themselves and to employ others. And this can be done by ensuring that we give people opportunities to exploit, the natural resources sustainably in the areas where they are. I don't need to work in Lusaka if I come from Mpulungu, because in Mpulungu there is a harbor, there is a lake there. There's a lot I can do. I can do fish farming, I can do irrigation farming because there's plenty of water, and I'll make more money than the one in Lusaka here who's waiting for a salary at the end of at the end of the month. So we need to embrace, the aspect of teaching people to be employers as opposed to being employees.
Okay. Well, Mr. Hamsunga, thank you for joining us on today's episode of Lumen Conversation Unscripted. I believe we have learned a lot. Hopefully, we are going to implement what we have learned. Well, our dear viewers, that's all we had for you today. Until next time, same place. It's bye-bye.